camera. Let's see. Kind of got the Batman villain angle going on here. Maybe if I turn it this way, that's a little better. Hi, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to another evening of hopefully good nature. Actually, we've got some pretty cool nature tonight. I'm going to start out with a couple little show and tells. A couple big show and tells here. A few months ago, actually several months ago, I was given a feather by our dear neighbor, Sarah. And you can probably tell by looking at it, even though I don't have my lip balm on me tonight, this thing's huge. It measures out at over 45 centimeters, which maybe doesn't mean a whole lot until you consider 40, centimeter is somewhere in the neighborhood of half an inch. So, we're talking something that is over 2 feet long. It's a big feather. Just for comparison, here's a turkey feather. And here's an owl feather. So considerably larger than either of these two. And potentially a liability if this is an eagle feather. So I kind of thought that's what it was when I was looking at it, and I was looking up information on eagle feathers. I have not, though. I'm kind of hedging on that because I've dug a little bit deeper. There is a really cool resource that I'm going to introduce you to here. We may have talked about this before, but if we did, it was quite a while ago. It's called the U.S. It's maintained by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. It's the Fish and Wildlife Feather Atlas. And I'm going to see here if I can bring up our screen share. I took a couple of pictures here, a couple of screen grabs from that website. Let's see, where did we go? There we are. And you can look up pretty much any bird, and if you say you find a feather and you think it's a blue jay, you can look up blue jay and you can compare what you found to their feather atlas. They've got it sorted out by the types of feathers that are on the body. There's primary wing feathers, secondary wing feathers. Some of their collection, they have more of some birds than of other birds, but they, in addition to the various feathers from various locations on the birds' bodies, they also, where appropriate, will have it divided by either adult and immature, or male and female. It's really cool. And so this is primarily what I've been using to determine just who or what this giant feather belongs to. And here we have, these are the primary wing feathers of the bald eagle. And you can see by size, these feathers are certainly in the neighborhood of what this feather would measure. But then I came across an article that was written for conservation officers, game wardens, those sorts of folks who need to determine whether someone is carrying eagle feathers, which, by the way, you really can't possess. They need to be turned over to Fish and Wildlife, and then Native American tribes can apply to use them in some of their cultural events. So that's what I meant by this might be a liability, but I'm kind of now thinking that it might be a turkey vulture feather, just a really big one. So here we have our bald eagle feathers, which match by size. But then here we have our turkey vulture feathers, which match more in terms of the color and a couple other things. I'm gonna stop the share here now, and I'm gonna see if this is gonna work. I know this camera doesn't have great resolution on it, but this part of the feather here is called the shaft. And on a bald eagle, they say that the shaft is smooth. And there's no marks on it. This is very faint parallel lines running the length of it. So that's one thing that has me going, another is this groove on the back, on the underside of the shaft. This, Bob, if you're tuned in tonight, this is the feather I was talking about. I'm going to actually take this to King County Audubon tomorrow, and it might then make its way down to the Field Museum where where all the feather experts hang out, and we can get an actual ID on it. But whether it's an eagle and it has to go bye-bye, or it's a turkey vulture and we get to keep it, either way, it is a really cool and really big feather. I'm going to pull up our screen share once again. Oh gosh, I got to make sure that support puppy does not eat tonight's visual aids. Come up here, buddy. All right, let's go back to the screen. So I'll show you here. You can just go USFS W Feather Atlas Bald Eagle. And here's what you see on the actual website. These are secondaries, but you go down here and so here's the feathers in their inventory. Here's the images, and feather type says, where it is on the body, the sex of the bird, whether it's known or if it's unknown, and then the age of the bird, which for bald eagles is kind of important. Some other birds, they don't get this specific because there's either adults or immatures. But if we go down here, like here, you can click on the primaries of a female bald eagle. This is a subadult, but look at the length of this. This is even bigger. This one is over 48 centimeters in length. So a good couple of centimeters bigger than the one we have. But yeah, it's a super cool resource. And you can also, if you go, I search for a specific species, you can actually, there's ways that you can narrow down if you have no idea of what you found. You can answer some questions along here, like does it have bars on it? Is it solid in color? And speaking of color, gives you a range of things that you can choose from here. Size, and it's huge, longer than 24 centimeters. So again, 46 plus is a massive feather. I'll keep you posted on the identification of that feather. Hopefully we'll be able to figure it out. And if and when we do, I'll be sure and let you know. All righty, let's tell you what, let's go back to our...
Hey, Pam.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, excuse me.
No problem.
It's tough to tell. Is it more brown in color?
Oh, you know
or
what?
is it blackish?
It is let's see. I'd say it's dark brown with an overlay of kind of gold when the light hits it just right, or bronze.
Is there
Uh,
any chance a sandhill crane feather?
um, somebody else had mentioned that, but sandhills, those are kind of gray. Let me see, Kay, if I can add more light to this. Oh, I don't know if that helps or not. I shot myself in the eye with that light. Yeah, no, it's just looking more. It's not as gray as you would expect a crane feather to be, Kay. Here you can kind of see the brownish
Yeah.
golden effect. Now that's looking at from the underside.
I believe I actually found one because they hung around our yard all summer,
Oh yeah?
and it was more tannish brown.
Oh yeah? Um, is there any chance that it might be dyed? They rub and it actually gets it changes the color of the feather. They put soil on their feathers to
Oh,
help in their camouflage from the area that they'll be nesting in.
that's quite possible. I didn't realize it.
That would be really cool. Yeah. Yeah, it's a little trick they have because if you look at pictures online of sandhill cranes, sometimes you'll see them in their varying shades of gray, light gray, dark gray. And then you'll see some that are really brown. And you'd think, gosh, is that a subspecies? Well, it turned out, and some are, especially if they're nesting in an area where there's a lot of iron in the soil, and it makes that kind of rusty red color. They run that through their feathers to help them blend in better with their surroundings.
Yeah,
And
they're excellent camouflagers, if you will.
yeah, and I don't know if you recall last, this would have been in early spring, so maybe early April. We received at the Nature Center a sandhill that had been hit by a car. And as I was wrapping it prior to taking it to the taxidermist, wrapping it up in plastic, and I was looking really closely at the feathers because it had quite a bit of brown on it, and I expected it to wipe off, because it was dirt, but it actually dyes the color on the feather so that they better blend into their surroundings. Yeah, isn't that cool?
Yeah, and maybe I could drop it off or something like that.
Sure. Oh, you know what? The girls in the marketing department love it when you bring stuff over. They haven't forgotten the spider.
Sorry.
Cool. No, that's fine. That'd be great, Kate.
Thanks.
Sure. Yeah, so use check out that feather atlas if you're into looking at feathers. Keep in mind, it is a violation of the conservation laws to possess feathers of our migratory birds. I don't know how that works with any birds that are also game birds. If you need like a hunting license in order to have those, or if you can just collect them. I know an awful lot of people that pick up goose feathers. Sometimes they keep them, sometimes I don't know what they do with them, but I see a lot of people running around with those. But yeah, it's a fun thing to learn, and it's another resource that you can use to learn about the birds, the animals, the wildlife that surrounds us. All right, let's go back. Let's go back here. So yeah, Feather Atlas, super cool. Check it out. This was something I've always wanted to do this, and I did it for 3 days, and then my schedule changed and I wasn't able to get the final shot. But this tree here, in the middle of this picture, it's hard to see the leaves. Maybe the growth habit will give it away. This is a ginkgo tree. And this is what it looked like a week ago yesterday. So Monday, October 30th. And as you recall, the next day was Halloween, October 31st. Pretty chilly, little snow. Ginkgos, they react boom, like this. When the weather changes, when we get a hard frost, those leaves do not stick around. You can see here at the bottom underneath it how many had come down. There's still a few hanging on here. And then I think the next day I went by was Thursday, and this is what was left. Now I did walk by this tree today. It is completely bare, and all these leaves that are on the ground are raked onto the curb. Yeah, it's always I don't know, just something that always amuses me every year, because our other all of our native trees, they tend to, they go through a fall that takes a few weeks. The leaves change color gradually, and then they dry up and they fall off. Ginkgos, boy, it's kind of like a one day and they're done type of thing. Maybe you've got a ginkgo in your neighborhood that you can do this with. It's kind of fun. This one, by the way, it's either a male tree or some sort of sterile hybrid, because there's never any of the stinky berries. Even the ones that grow near downtown Geneva, they've cut down some of them. There's still a couple local folks, if you want to go and smell I've heard them called barf trees, dog poop trees. Like there's a lot of very uncomplimentary names that go along with the ginkgo because of the smell that accompanies the berries that drop down. But there's one, at least one at State Street, which is Route 38, and 4th Street in Geneva, if you're so inclined to go check it out. Yeah. So this caught my eye the other day. This is a little wafer ash. It's got leaves of 3. And I was trying to come up with a way to describe, because a lot of people, especially when it's a small little plant like this, a lot of people would look at that and think it's poison ivy, and it's not. Leaves, you don't want to touch them, but they are. I mean, you don't want to touch them if you don't know what it is. If you do want to know what it is, you could touch it, and they are thicker or more substantial. I was struggling for words to describe what the leaf is like, but another common lookalike with poison ivy is the box elder. Box elders are a maple tree, and maples grow with an opposite growth habit. So the 2 leaflets, by the way, these are leaflets. 3 leaflets make up this compound leaf. And a box elder, they grow opposite each other. Poison ivy, they grow alternately. Well, wafer ash is not a true ash tree, so it also it has an alternate growth habit too. But anyway, this is a young ash tree this was taken over at Leroy Oaks near the new bridge that they put in. On older ash trees, wafer ash trees, you can look for these distinctive seeds, which we have talked about before. Now, what we didn't talk about the last time wafer ash came up was some of the insects associated with it. I think I did mention the giant swallowtail butterfly, because that's wafer ash is one of their food plants. But also at Leroy Oaks, I saw something really cool. That's another shot of the leaves. I saw this. So this is a 2-spotted tree hopper. See the little critter right here? If we zoom in on it. So I was taking pictures of the wafer ash, and what first caught my eye was this white stuff, and I thought the white was probably some kind of a scale insect. But then when I looked closer, I saw these tree hoppers. There's one here. There's another one kind of hiding over here, which we can see better in some of these subsequent pictures. And when I I touched one of these white blobs and it was sticky. And it actually felt kind of like the inside of a marshmallow. It was that kind of sticky. And I didn't think a whole lot of it at the time. Again, I was thinking some sort of a fluffy, scaly type of insect. But then I started to do a little bit more research into these two-spotted leafhoppers. When we talked about them before, I mentioned that there's entomologists are giving these insects a much closer look because it appears that they are specific to their plant host. So like these two-spotted treehoppers on this wafer ash are their own species. They would be distinct from two-spotted leafhoppers on, say, a redbud. They communicate with each other through the vascular system of the plant that they live on. And they're very unlikely to leave that plant to go to a different species. And what I also found out is these white blobs, and let's zoom in. Actually, let's go to the next picture. Let's zoom in on this here. So here we've got our you can see the two spots there, two-spotted leafhopper. These blobs here are, they are a mass of, they're an excretion that the female treehopper produces after she has deposited her eggs. This is what I was reading about. So this is Ohio State Extension. They have some kind of cool articles. I was reading about the treehopper, and it turns out these white blobs are how the female treehopper covers up her eggs. So she will saw into the, here's some scars here from where eggs have been laid. Once she deposits the eggs, then she puts these, what do they call them? Plugs, egg plugs over them to cover them up. It gets even cooler. Check out this. The plugs also contain a chemical attractant that draws other females to lay their eggs near one another. So again, they're perpetuating their species, which seems to be specific to, sorry, tech crew here is trying to eat the visual aids again. So they are specific to the plant that they live on. I just thought that was really cool. A sign of, now maybe there are other insects that do this too, and we just have yet to figure it out. But I know there's a lot of interest in the insect community surrounding these two-spotted treehoppers. Right, let's zoom out of this and go to the next one, because Jerry, I don't know if you're on tonight, but you sent this picture in, and when I first saw it, I thought, oh, there's another two-spotted treehopper. But this was identified by the iNaturalist community as, I think, a wide-legged treehopper, and it's not on a tree. I think it looks like some sort of herbaceous plant. Is it maybe a goldenrod or something?
I just put that in the chat. I think I couldn't remember what type of plant it is, but I think it is goldenrod. There's tons of goldenrod on this nature path.
Okay, but boy, that shape, and these treehoppers, I first saw one. A friend of mine had posted a picture of one a few years ago on Facebook, and she called it a miniature brontosaurus. So that's what I see whenever I see these guys. Don't they look, if you tilt your head, don't they look like a dinosaur?
Absolutely.
And I didn't see a whole lot of difference at first between that insect and these guys, but I guess there is there's a significant difference. Well, for one, it doesn't have two spots on it, and two, does this not prefer herbaceous plants? I was doing a little reading on these guys too. Yeah, herbaceous plants, especially the asters, and often goldenrod. Well, what do you know? But yeah, that was, I kind of wonder if these insects are more prevalent at this time of year. I just thought it was a strange coincidence, Jerry, that you had spotted yours, or roughly the same time I had spotted this two-spotted one. So they do tree hopper, like the leaf hoppers. They do feed on plant juices, and as such are oftentimes tended by ants, because the ants will feed off of their the fluids that they excrete as part of their feeding their digestive process. Oh, super cool picture, much better than mine, by the way.
It's a miracle I even got it because it was a really breezy day.
Oh,
I don't know how long it took me to get one clear shot of that darn little bug.
in fact,
It was worth it.
It was, yeah. Were you holding the stem still, or did you just have a quick shutter speed? Because
it's just my iPhone, and
oh,
I
wow.
took a bunch of photos. And no, I could, because I can't press, the shutter, whatever, the button on the phone and hold the stem at the same time. So I just got very lucky.
Well, and yeah, I was with a friend at Leroy, and so she was kind of helping hold the stem. So because the same thing, it was a breezy day that day too, and the branch was bouncing all over the place. And then I was just using my phone, and of course it wants to focus on something big like the seeds here, not the little thing next to it. But yeah, folks, keep your eyes open. We were having such an extended warm spell. I mean, we've had a few days of cold, but there's a lot of insects that are still hanging on here as we go into our second week of November. So this I thought was interesting too, Jerry, because when I saw that tree hopper, and then I touched that, I thought it was some sort of a scale as insect or woolly aphid type of thing, but you actually found some woolly aphids.
They were all over a couple of these trees. They grossed me out a little.
Now I think woolly aphids, I should have looked up a little more about these guys, but I think they're ones that have two plant hosts where they live 1 year on one tree and then they go to another tree for the next year. But yeah, they do it when they're present in large quantities, because they are feeding, like the tree hoppers. Aphids feed on plant juices, so a big group of them like that, they could have an effect on the tree over time, especially if these are smaller trees. I don't know, look like little crab apples of some sort. But another cool shot. So not all white things on trees are insects themselves. Sometimes they're the insect, like in the case of these aphids, and sometimes they're the egg plugs, like we saw with the tree hoppers. Okay, cool. Now this, okay, so this is a mushroom, and this was the top angle. This is the bottom angle. And this was another Leroy Oaks find. This was during a Nature Nerd walk last Friday. And I was really taken by one of the common names of this mushroom. Now, there's a lot of mushrooms that are quite poisonous. Some of them have names that reflect that. There's the death angel. There's the destroying angel. I'm sorry, the destroying angel. Well, this one is known as the funeral bells. And I guess the bells part comes from the shape of the mushroom. Although funeral bells apparently are what you would hear if you ate this thing. This one is a extremely deadly mushroom. There's not much hope if you accidentally consume it, if you think you're eating something else. It's a pretty quick acting toxin that is inside this mushroom. So it's definitely one you do not want to mess with. And that's where I think, if we go back to this one, there is a group of mushrooms called the honey mushrooms, that it kind of have this general color, but this one is identified. It's got this noticeable ring here. Now the ring has started to slough off, but then the field guides describe it as having kind of a silvery character to the stem. This wasn't a particularly large mushroom. This is what it looked like standing up above. I would say I didn't put my lip balm next to this one. That could have turned out badly. But I would say from one side to the other of the cap, we were only looking at maybe 2 to 3 inches. These were pretty small, but pretty deadly too. But just really pretty. Look at these gills underneath, the way the light comes through. Very attractive. It's a mushroom that grows on dead wood. That's something else when you're learning about mushroom identification, which is for me a constant process, because there's just so many things to look at. But the substrate on which the mushroom is growing is something you always want to pay attention to. This one, a lot of the references say it grows predominantly on conifers and sometimes on hardwoods. This, I'm pretty sure, was an oak log. It was we weren't anywhere near any pines, and the bark on this didn't look like a conifer. Sometimes when you're identifying mushrooms, you will pick them, bring them home, and do what's called a spore print. You put it on black paper and white paper, because sometimes the spores that drop from the mushroom are light in color and they'd be hard to see on white paper. But in forest preserve, you're not supposed to pick anything, so we didn't do that. Funeral bells, though, they would have a brown spore print, which is something else that would help distinguish them from some of the less deadly or even some of the edible varieties. Very, very pretty. So did get the lip balm out for this. This was kind of an exciting find the other day. It was still quite fresh. This is a little pellet, and I'm pretty sure it's a pellet of a Cooper's hawk. But what caught my eye was its small size. And let me get our other visual aid out here. Where did it go? Gosh, I hope it didn't get eaten. Hold on. There it is. Just sitting behind the computer. Okay, I'm gonna stop the screen share for just a second. So shortly after I started at the Park District, I came in one day and there was a little box on my desk. All right, so keep that pellet in mind. I'm gonna stop the share here. I had a whole little container of these show up on my desk. And it is similar in a lot of respects to that pellet that was on the sidewalk the other day. These are screech owl pellets, and they date back to the pre-Hickory Knolls days, when there was just the splash park out at what was then called Campton Hills Park. It's now James O'Brien Community Park, but the screech owls would hang out in the up inside the peaked roof of the splash park, and they would cough up these pellets. Well, one of the facilities guys, Mr. Mike, he knew that I liked stuff like this, so he brought me a whole jar of them. And I've had them ever since. They're great when we're talking about owls, because a great horned owl pellet, my goodness, sometimes they're 4 or 5 inches long. These are just wee tiny little things, but they contain fur and hair. Some of them have little bits of what looks like insect legs and stuff. Remember, screech owls, they're only about 9-10 inches tall. They're pretty small themselves. So producing a pellet, and they do these frequently. The small pellets match their small size. All right, I'm gonna seal these back up again. I've had them for 15 years. I'm not gonna let the furry roommates eat them. Come on, get up here. So let's go back here now to this pellet we found the other day. So I was walking the furry roommates when we came upon this pellet. And if we zoom in, we'll see that this, I don't know if we can see it in the picture or not. I rolled it around a little bit. Yeah, you can see. This isn't made of fur and bones. This is made up of feathers. See, there's some small feather shafts here. Here's a larger end of a feather here, shaft sticking out. So that was kind of cool, because that would indicate probably a Cooper's hawk. They had coughed that up. Hawk pellets are a little rarer than owl pellets. Owls tend to just kind of gobble what they found. A great horned owl, they'll swallow a lot of things whole. A vole will go down whole, a mouse will go down whole. And like the little screech owls, they can even swallow like a whole shrew. Our smaller, like our masked shrews and stuff, they'll take the whole thing, swallow it whole. Hawks, like say a Cooper's hawk, they specialize in feeding on other birds, and they will pluck their prey. But even the most careful plucking, there's still going to be some feathers that make their way down, and they do then form these smaller pellets. So I was kind of thinking Cooper's hawk. In fact, there was a woman in the neighborhood. She was across the street. She was raking her leaves, and she saw me, like, down on my knees and with the lip balm and the phone and the dogs and everything. And she said, "Oh, did you find something cool?" And I said, "Well, I think it's kind of cool." And I told her what it was. And she says, "Oh, that does sound cool." So then she came over and she told me that that she does often see a Cooper's hawk in the area, and there's a house with a big antenna. I think it might be a ham radio antenna, and she said she'll see a Cooper's hawk sitting up there. So I was pretty sure this was a Cooper's pellet. And then we walked about maybe 4 yards down, and we start seeing evidence. I think there is one less mourning dove in the neighborhood. Here we didn't find any more than this, but when you see this many feathers in an area, there's a pretty good chance, whoa, that the bird that wore those feathers is no longer around. So we're going to go with a Cooper's hawk ate a mourning dove and produced a pellet. Put that story together. All right, so yeah, I kind of messed up. This was going to be a big gee whiz wowee. This was a photo that was shared yesterday. I was visiting a retirement community, and a woman came up and she said, "Did you hear about the beaver in downtown St. Charles?" And I had not, but she took these pictures. There's this one and this one, a slightly different angle. This is the ledge where the old Manor restaurant used to be. She was actually over on the bridge, the Main Street Bridge in St. Charles. So local folks, you can probably picture that. There's a lot of construction going on just the other side of this. There's a gosh, and this has been going on for months now. They're getting rid of First Street and turning it into a plaza so that people going to restaurants and things can walk back and forth. I think the plan is to have entertainment and stuff in that area as well. So there's tractor trucks, all kinds of noise going on. And she said this beaver was just pretty unperturbed. Looks like it's found itself a sandbag to call home. Is that a nail sticking on that board? I don't know. But I do want to go over and check it out because she said she went by a couple different times and it was there. So I don't know if it's going to hang out there. Beavers usually like to have something over their heads, but maybe this is just a convenient place to pull out and hang out for a while. But if you're downtown and you happen to see the beaver, let me know. I'm going to go check it out too. Look at that tail. Can we zoom in on that? Yeah. That massive scaled tail, which they use for balance, and they use it for slapping in the water to warn other beavers. They don't use it to pat mud. That's why they've got their little beaver paws here. They carry mud and build using their front paws. And this tail functions, it's more for stability when they're sitting up and chewing on something. But it's not used for patting mud the way some people have characterized it. Yeah, I think that is a nail in that. I'll have to hope the beaver doesn't step on it. All right, so Miss Bonnie, I don't know if you're able to join us tonight, but these came from Bonnie's yard. This is a squirrel who's had a bit of bad luck befall it. It's a nice chubby fox squirrel, but it's missing its tail. Now I've heard different people have characterized the squirrel without a tail as either lucky because whatever happened to that tail didn't harm the rest of the animal. Maybe a predator tried to grab it, maybe it got caught in something, but the animal survived. And then some people say, oh, yeah, that's bad luck. That squirrel isn't going to have much of a future because they use that tail for balance when they're jumping and running. They use it for cover. They can hold it up over their back to protect from snow and rain, wind. They can curl up with the tail around them and use it for warmth. So I found, you can find anything on the internet. There was a squirrel board for people who rehabilitate squirrels, and there was story after story of tailless squirrels having survived for many years afterward because they're pretty distinctive. But the squirrel without a tail stands out amongst all the other squirrels with tails. A lot of people reported them, living 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. If a squirrel survives its first 6 months or so, it can probably look at a lifespan. The average lifespan is 4 to 6 years. Once they mature, that first year is rough though. And that's why some references will say they have an average lifespan of 2 years. The reason that's so low is because there's a lot of mortality in that first year, so that drives down the average. But once they survive to adulthood, 4 to 6 years is pretty common. And in captivity, they've been known to live 12 years or more. So we'll have to see how this one does. I'm sure, Bonnie, you can keep an eye out for it. And it certainly does look different from the other squirrels. So you could keep tabs on it. But love to know its story, though, wouldn't you? This I thought was kind of cool. I've gone to over 60 years, never having knowingly seen a broad-faced sack spider. And now I've found two in the last couple of months. I found that one a couple of months ago when I was out with my black light at night, and it's the spider that ate a daddy longlegs. Well, this I was doing some cleanup at my folks' house. We're getting ready for an estate sale, and this little missy came crawling. I was cleaning around the front door here, and she came up and just kind of wanted to make friends. These sack spiders, they look, at a glance, they look kind of similar to the woodlouse spider. Woodlouse spiders have this gray body. Woodlouse spiders tend to have a like really deep maroon color to their legs, and then they've got these enormous mouth parts up front because their job is to eat woodlice, which are also known as roly-polies and sow bugs. The sack spiders, you can see she's got her mouth parts here, but they're not overly they're not huge fangs, they're just normal fangs. And then we're saying she because here we can see her pedipalps, and there's no boxing gloves on the end. The boxing gloves, if we saw large growths or large structures on the end of those palps, those would be the male reproductive parts, and that would be Mr. sack spider as opposed to Mrs. So I set her back outside. I assumed that she had come from the leaves that were on the front step. So I set her back outside again. Not all spiders like to live outside. If she had been a yellow sack spider, which that's the first spider I found in this house when I was a kid, growing up. My friends that lived in older houses, they had these incredible varieties of spiders, and all I ever seemed to find were the yellow sack spiders. I guess they do live outside, but I've always associated them with the indoors. I've got them here in this house. I had them there in that house where I grew up. This would be their cousin. And now she's back outside gazing in the leaf litter. So Jerry, back to you on your more remarkable photography, this being a backswimmer, which is an aquatic bug that must have, you said this was on Lake Michigan beach. Maybe it got washed up by a wave, but this is the back of the backswimmer. I'm sorry, this is the front. Let me zoom in here if I can. Backswimmers swim on their backs, and they're actually predatory. They're similar to, let's see, I did leave it up. They're similar in the way they move to these insects here. These are water boatmen, but water boatmen are, they're both true bugs. They have piercing and sucking mouth parts, but the water boatmen, they feed on algae and things like that in the water, whereas our backswimmers are actually predaceous. In fact, they might even eat water boatmen, but they have these long legs that they use to propel themselves through the water, like the oars on a boat. Hence the name water boatman or back swimmer. But when I wanted to see if I could zoom in here on, maybe I can't zoom in. Maybe because I imported these photos. Yeah, it's not letting me zoom in. They actually have a keel here that keeps them, they have a keel on their body. So, you know, like a keel on a boat keeps it going straight. The backswimmers have a keel that keeps them swimming straight in the water as well.
I'm glad I didn't rescue it then. And move it farther away from the water. That would have been
Yeah, I
bad.
guess it can give quite a poke. I know I've been bitten by some of the other water bugs, but these don't tend to be that big. But this was probably what, like a little over half an inch or so in length.
Yeah,
Not
probably.
not so big, but a lot of times when they prey on other insects, they don't just have that piercing and sucking mouth part that makes a hole. Then they also have something in their saliva to stun or subdue the, you know, and that's where the pain part comes into play. So yeah, probably a good thing. Just wait till the next wave to carry it back out.
Yeah, I would have moved it away from the water and hurt it. I'm putting it in the wrong place, so I'm glad I just left it alone. Cool bug though.
Yeah. We'll see them. And, you know, in a pan of water, this is something that we'll find a lot of times in still waters, like dipping in a pond or a quiet area of the river. And they swim, you know, crazy, like they stroke those legs back and forth, and they can dive down. There's you can see two pairs of legs here. They have their third pair of legs is kind of small. It's up at the front, and that's what they use when they submerge themselves. Otherwise, their tendency is to bob up all the time, but if they want to stay down, they have to hold on to a plant, and they use those shorter front legs to do that. Cool pictures, Jerry. Thanks for sharing them. I guess we're at the end of our slides for tonight, so I'll stop the screen share. We'll head over to our chats. And 3 female ginkgos on State Street. Yes, the U of I quad. Oh, and ISU had one too. Yeah, I remember there were some in between. I think Gregory Hall, U of I people. I think Gregory Hall and the communications, or was Gregory Hall the communications building? I remember there was a bike rack and a building, and to walk between those, you had to squish all of those berries, and you'd always know, like, if you ended up in the lecture hall sitting next to somebody who'd taken that shortcut, because this time of year you're going to smell them. All right, and that wide-footed tree hopper. So yeah, that one right now the interest seems to be in the 2-spotted tree hopper being the one that is plant species specific. But again, I kind of wonder, you find out this quality in one creature, and then it turns out they are not unique. And it's just, we didn't realize that other animals did it too. So we'll have to see what develops on that front. Yeah, let's accidentally plant female ginkgos. Yeah, probably got a deal on them. Are the woolly aphids the fairy bugs we saw floating through in the summer? Oh gosh, Laura, that's a good question. I believe they are. And those are there's a bunch of different species of those as well. And they're usually specific to a couple different plants, and they have a 2-part 2-year life phase where they are to complete the entire life cycle. Some females are reared on one plant, and then there's another species that plays a role in the second part of that. The second generation of that 2-year life cycle. I'm trying to think. I know there's one that goes between the is it the woolly alder aphid is alders and is it silver maples? I'm just digging way in the back here, but yeah, those little fairy bugs are what we were seeing this summer. That's what we're talking about. They do, though, part of that life cycle, they're not woolly and floaty like that. There is another part where they're just on the tree and they're not transporting themselves with that woolly fluff. Oh, we got one more down here. Alternate host. Thank you. Thank you, Ann. Appreciate that. Does anybody have anything else they care to note or add? If not, sure appreciate you tuning in tonight. We'll be back again next week for our middle of November look at all the good nature around us. Until then, folks, enjoy our 50-degree weather. Supposed to last for a few more days yet. And we'll be back again next week. All right. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Pam.
Thanks, Pam.
Have a good night.
Good
Everybody.
night.
Pam.
Pam.
Thanks,
Thanks so
Pam.
much.